Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere most people don't even think about when they imagine the ancient world. You're standing in the middle of a Bronze Age port. Yes, the Bronze Age. Somewhere around 1600 BCE, on the island of Crete. The air is thick with sea salt, fish brine, and the distant bleating of goats. The sun is already unforgiving, glaring down like it's trying to melt the terracotta rooftops. This isn't Athens, Rome, or even Egypt. You're in a bustling Minoan seaside town where almost nothing is written in a language we can understand, and you, my poor friend, are about to realise how unprepared you are for it all. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. Drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge barefoot across uneven stone slabs, the morning sun already heating them just enough to make your soles twitch. Every step stirs up dust and the smell of wet rope. Around you, the town yawns awake. Wooden shutters creak open, vendors set out little jars of olives and sea urchin dye, and in the distance, you hear someone yelling about a runaway goat. There's no paved road, just a tight grid of alleys winding between plastered homes, each painted in soft reds and whites. You pass a woman who looks like she hasn't blinked in 2 hours. She's balancing a massive amphora on her head while chewing something green and bitter. She eyes you up and down, and you suddenly remember you're underdressed, or overdressed, or both. Welcome to the town of Amnisos, or maybe it's Komos. Scholars still debate whether these coastal sites were seasonal ports, full towns, or both. What's certain is that the Minoans were master traders and sailors, and this place is crawling with energy. Behind you, a ship groans at anchor. The crew is still asleep, curled in piles of rope and nets that smell like yesterday's squid. You probably imagined the Bronze Age would be all about pyramids or swords, but here it's more about logistics and humidity. A kid dashes past you, barefoot and grinning, shouting something in a language you don't recognise. Likely Minoan, written in the infamous Linear A script, which, yes, we still haven't deciphered. So when people talk to you, all you can do is smile and nod like a polite but utterly lost tourist. You're not totally alone. Some Mycenaean visitors, possibly from mainland Greece, are in town and they look almost as confused as you do, though they're a bit more aggressive about it, bartering noisily with the local fishmongers. The harbour's water sparkles under the morning sun, a ridiculous turquoise that feels unreal. But don't let it fool you. That sea might be beautiful, but it's crawling with jellyfish and the occasional pirate. One local points out toward the horizon and mimics a stabbing motion, then laughs and shrugs. You don't ask questions. As you walk further into town, a priestess walks by, her long linen robes rippling like water. She's got a cobra-headed staff and a look that says, "I talk to gods before breakfast." You try not to stare. The Minoan religion, from what we've pieced together, was matriarchal, or at least featured women prominently. Shrines and frescoes show them at the centre of ceremonies, bull-leaping rituals and other events that seem both athletic and sacrificial. A street musician with a crooked flute begins playing near a small public square, and children gather around him, some with little clay toys. One of them hands you a broken figurine shaped like a bull. Is it a toy, a religious relic, or both? Scholars remain divided on whether these miniature bulls were symbols of fertility, offerings, or simply childhood distractions. You duck into a shaded alcove, your forehead slick with sweat, and lean against a pillar painted with faded dolphins. Minoan frescoes, those famous wall paintings, seem to appear on every flat surface, and most of them show the sea, or animals, or young, oddly serene people floating in motion. It's beautiful, and somehow unsettling. Everyone looks like they're caught mid-spin. You take a deep breath. The air smells like beeswax and thyme, with just a hint of sheep. Not bad, actually. Your stomach growls. But before food comes clothing, because right now you're just some 21st century stowaway in synthetic pants, and people are starting to notice. A woman nearby gestures for you to follow her toward a small stall. There, folded in piles, are tunics, kilts, and some frankly intimidating sashes. Welcome to Minoan fashion. Hope you like linen and discomfort. She offers you a garment that looks like a tablecloth and mimes how to wear it. There's a lot of wrapping and tying and grunting. Eventually you're wearing a simple white kilt with a blue border and something resembling sandals made from twisted reeds. It's itchy, it's airy, and you already miss your hoodie. In the background, a goat starts climbing the steps of a nearby villa like it owns the place. Nobody stops it. You're beginning to suspect the goats are in charge here. A voice calls out, sharp, commanding. You look up. It's a bronze smith waving you over. He points to your wrist and holds up a cuff bracelet made of twisted copper. You shake your head. He shrugs and smirks, muttering something that sounds suspiciously like tourist. By now the sun is almost overhead. Time in this place doesn't move like it does back home. There's no schedule, only rhythms. The rhythm of waves against stone, of sandals scuffing dust, of gossip floating between balconies, and of that endless hum of life lived without clocks. And just as you're starting to adjust, just as the warmth almost feels pleasant, you realise that your day hasn't even really started yet. You're about to be apprenticed. You just don't know it yet. Your stomach lets out a low, desperate growl, but before you can go chasing breakfast, a pair of rough hands clap your shoulders. You spin around, well, more of a half stumble, only to find a wiry old man grinning at you with all the teeth he still owns. He's wearing a stained tunic and what looks like a belt made from braided palm fibre, and he smells like damp clay and crushed olives. He yells something incomprehensible, probably a cheerful, "Good morning," or maybe, "Congratulations, you're hired," and points toward a sunlit courtyard filled with pots, bowls, and a lot of mud. A lot of mud. Congratulations, you're now a pottery apprentice. Before you can protest, he waves you into a little back room that smells like mildew and goats. Hanging on a peg is your new uniform. Another linen wrap, this time even less dignified than the one you just put on. You change, reluctantly, and emerge into the work area looking like someone who just lost a bet with a curtain. The courtyard is already bustling. 3 other apprentices, barefoot, sunburned, and completely uninterested in your existence, are pounding balls of reddish-brown clay on a long slab of stone. One of them sneezes, then wipes his nose on his elbow and keeps going. Your master, whose name sounds like Tarlo, hands you a bowl of water and a blob of sticky clay. He demonstrates with swift, practiced movements. Slap, knead, fold, turn, slap. Then he gestures at you. Your turn. You slap. The clay sticks to your palm, you knead. It farts. You try folding it, but somehow you end up with something resembling a lopsided melon. Tallow sighs, grabs the lump from you, and flattens it into a perfect disc in seconds. You think you hear him mutter, "City folk," under his breath. Pottery might sound simple, but here it's sacred. The Minoans weren't just making jugs and bowls, they were making art. Intricately painted vessels, massive pithoi for storing olive oil, and delicate cups with octopus designs so lifelike they practically wiggle. Archaeologists have found thousands of these, some still smelling faintly of ancient garlic. No joke. You settle into a rhythm, kind of. The sun climbs higher, baking your shoulders. The clay keeps drying out before you're done shaping it, and you have to keep wetting it, which somehow makes it slippery enough to launch across the work table like a meatball. After about an hour of you absolutely ruining every lump you touch, Tallow makes a strange hand gesture, like a spiral with a point, and one of the older boys leads you away from the courtyard. You're not being fired. Yet. Instead, you're taken into a narrow back room with shelves upon shelves of finished pottery, most of it chipped or cracked. This is where the discards go, and apparently so do you. Your new job is to scrub off the paint, grind the pots down to powder, and sort what's left into bins for reuse. You sit on a worn stool, holding half of a broken amphora, and start scraping it with a bit of pumice. Your hands are quickly covered in fine dust, and your nostrils fill with the scent of mineral and mould. Time blurs. A fly lands on your ear and refuses to leave. Your knees begin to ache. Welcome to Minoan artisan life. Less bohemian dream, and more dusty endurance test. There's a lot we don't know about how Minoan workshops were organised. Experts still debate whether they were centralised under palace control or run more like neighbourhood co-ops. What we do know, apprentices were worked hard, and the line between craftsman and labourer was very, very thin. Occasionally someone brings you a bit of barley bread or a fig. One kid drops a slice of cheese in your lap, grins and runs off. It tastes like sour hope and old shoes, but you eat it anyway. Outside the workshop you can hear the rhythms of the street, Vendors shouting, donkeys braying, the occasional slap of sandals. But in here, it's just you, a mountain of broken clay, and the faint hope of a water break. Midway through your scraping marathon, a cat wanders in, thin, smug, and clearly in charge. It hops onto a shelf, knocks over a bowl, and stares at you like it's your fault. Then it leaves. No one will ever believe you. To your left, a cracked jug reveals a painted motif. 2 dolphins chasing each other in a spiral. The detail is astonishing. You brush your fingers along the curve and feel a strange tug of connection to the artist who made it centuries ago, with hands that probably ached the same way yours do now. There's a scholarly theory that certain Minoan motifs, dolphins, bulls, spirals, weren't just decorative but symbolic. Some say the spiral represented the cycle of life and death. Others argue it was purely aesthetic. The jury's out on whether the Minoans saw art as spiritual, functional, or both. You're leaning toward both, especially since this piece is now spiritual dust under your fingernails. By the time Talo returns, your arms feel like noodles and your mouth tastes like limestone. He pats your head, awkward, and gestures toward the exit. Freedom. Or at least a bathroom. Except there isn't a bathroom, not exactly. Just a narrow stone-lined trench near the back of the courtyard with a ceramic seat. You've seen worse, and better, and you've definitely seen more privacy. You squat, awkwardly. A breeze drifts past. Somewhere, a flute begins to play. It is not your finest hour. Back in the courtyard, a small crowd is gathering around a freshly thrown pot. One of the senior apprentices has sculpted something vaguely swan-shaped. Talo nods with approval and says something that sounds like, "Make it 40 more." You don't envy that guy. At long last, the sun dips low enough to cast some mercy shade across the courtyard. You stretch your back. Your hands are cracked. Your face is dusted with terracotta. And you've made nothing. Not a single salvageable item. Just a pile of clay shrapnel and shame. Still, Talo gives you a sideways glance and an almost smile. Maybe you'll get breakfast tomorrow. You don't so much wake up the next morning as emerge, bleary-eyed and sore from the linen and goat hair mat someone kindly, or sarcastically, gave you the night before. It's still dark, but the sky's tinged with that pale Minoan blue that promises another sweaty, goat-filled day. Your limbs ache like you've been wrestling tree trunks, which, metaphorically speaking, you kind of have. Someone claps. It's your pottery master, Talo. He says something short and guttural. From the expression and the aggressive waving, you think it means, "Come on, rookie, we eat before the sun boils our brains." You follow a small group through alleyways just wide enough for 2 humans, or 1 determined donkey. You pass shuttered stalls and sleepy-eyed cats perched like gargoyles on low roofs. You trip over a basket of figs someone left out to soften, which feels like a trap. Eventually the path opens into a cramped eating court, a sort of public breakfast zone where locals crowd together on low benches, clay bowls in hand, exchanging gossip and silent morning groans. There are no menus, no baristas, and definitely no oat milk. A woman in a blue headscarf shoves a bowl into your hands. It's warm, heavy, and steaming with something beige. You sit, you sniff. It smells like slightly sour oatmeal mixed with seawater and a hint of sheep. This is barley porridge. It's what Minoans call breakfast, and lunch, and sometimes dinner. You take a tentative bite. It's chewy, very chewy. The grains seem reluctant to admit they've been cooked. Still, it's food. You chew, you swallow, you nod like it's fine, absolutely fine, just like the greyish olive she plops into the bowl a second later. Next comes a chunk of goat cheese, slightly green at the edges. You try not to look directly at it. You bite, it bites back. It's sour, chalky, and somehow spicy, despite no apparent spices. The woman watches your expression like a hawk. You smile with your whole soul. She grunts with approval and moves on. In front of you, 2 men argue over a dried squid. One insists it's from yesterday. The other swears it's from the gods. They settle the matter by dipping it into some wine and sharing it like a communion wafer. You politely decline. That's the thing about breakfast here. It's more of a ritual than a meal. Everyone eats fast with minimal conversation, then moves on. There's no lingering, no scrolling through your tablet, no slow sips of overpriced coffee, just sustenance, fuel. Get up, eat barley, face the chaos. Interestingly, scholars remain divided on whether the Minoans consumed much meat regularly, or saved it mostly for festivals. The lack of butchery remains suggests a mostly plant-based diet with the occasional cheese or fish. That makes the goat cheese in your bowl a weirdly special experience. You try to appreciate it. You fail. A child across from you slurps something pink from a shell and laughs. A snail, you think? Or a sea slug? Or dessert? The line blurs disturbingly here. Suddenly a tall man in a red sash stumbles into the eating area. He's got a crow on his shoulder. No one blinks. He announces something loudly in Minoan, then slips on a grape and vanishes into a nearby doorway. Still no one blinks. Breakfast here isn't just a meal, it's theatre. You sip from a shared jug of barely filtered water. It tastes like whetstone and optimism. No sign of coffee, of course, or tea. The Minoans probably drank wine with breakfast more often than anything hot. You're not that brave, not yet. As the sun crests the eastern ridge, the crowd begins to scatter. People head off to tend goats, fire kilns, trade textiles, or in your case, continue failing at pottery until your hands forget they were ever made for anything else. But before you leave, the woman in the headscarf stops you. She reaches under her woven shawl and pulls out a small pouch. Inside are crushed herbs, mint, thyme, maybe fennel, and something that looks like crumbled bark. She tosses it into your half-finished porridge and motions for you to eat it. You do, against better judgment. And it's not bad. Not good either. But it adds something. A faint sweetness. A hint of forest. It wakes your mouth up. You nod again. This time it's almost honest. That moment of flavour makes you think, how many combinations of these simple ingredients did the Minoans try? Did someone stumble upon this bark and barley mix by accident? Was it a happy culinary experiment or a medicinal suggestion from someone's grandmother? Experts still debate whether Minoan cuisine was strictly functional or included elements of early gastronomy. Across the court, a donkey sneezes violently. The porridge nearly comes back up. You hand back your bowl, now half clean, and step back into the street. The heat is rising. Already? You wonder how people survive this every single day. You, with your modern bones and weak palate, are barely holding on. A small boy follows you for a few steps, poking your calf with a stick and giggling. You give him your best stern look. He grins wider. Apparently you've passed some kind of social test. He offers you a pebble. You take it. Because what else do you do? As you head back toward the workshop, the town begins to pulse again. Merchants shout names of fish. A flute starts up somewhere near the shoreline. A rooster crows, 20 minutes late, and the smell of fresh clay rides the breeze, calling you back to your grimy destiny. Barley in your belly, cheese still haunting your taste buds, and somewhere inside you, a tiny spark of admiration for a people who made this chaos into something lasting, beautiful, and strangely edible. You arrive back at the workshop with a belly full of barley and a heart full of low expectations. The sun's higher now, glaring over the rooftops like an angry supervisor. Talo, your mentor/taskmaster, is already drenched in sweat and halfway through shaping a storage jar that's taller than your torso. He doesn't look up when you enter, just grunts and jerks his chin toward a bucket of clay. Today, he's decided you're ready for the wheel. It's not the electric kind, of course. It's a foot-powered stone disc that looks like a forgotten part of a chariot. You sit behind it, knees bent awkwardly, and stare at the clay lump in front of you like it just insulted your family. Talo demonstrates once. Spin with the foot, steady with the hands. The wheel turns, the clay rises, graceful, effortless, like he's done this since birth. Which, for all you know, he has. Your turn. You press the pedal. The wheel wobbles like a drunk crab. The clay flops sideways. You jab at it. It sags like wet bread. Talo exhales slowly through his nose, as if summoning patience from the gods. Pottery is hard. The kind of hard that humbles you, especially when you realise the Minoans were making stunningly symmetrical amphorae thousands of years before electricity, ball bearings, or ergonomic stools. You're just trying not to sling mud into your own eye socket. It doesn't help that it's hot. Really hot. The kiln nearby radiates enough heat to bake your eyelids. Someone adds more wood to it, and a puff of acrid smoke drifts through the open windows. You cough. Talo hands you a wet cloth to tie around your mouth. It smells like vinegar and rosemary. Not the worst thing that's happened to you today. Around you, the other apprentices work silently, almost reverently. They mould jugs, cups, ceremonial goblets, even little figurines of animals, mostly bulls, goats and birds. One kid's made a two-headed snake and is painting it with a brush made from horsehair and a reed. He looks too proud for how weird it is. You're finally beginning to get a feel for the wheel, your hands wet and steady, your foot finding rhythm, when a small commotion outside the courtyard breaks your focus. Voices rise. Something crashes. A donkey brays, offended. You rush to the doorway just in time to see a wooden cart has tipped over in the middle of the street. Amphorae roll in all directions like angry ghosts. Olive oil spills into the dust. A merchant stands over the wreckage, arms flailing, shouting what sounds like theatrical insults involving squid. You back away slowly. Not your problem. Not today. Talo claps once. Loud. Sharp. Back to work. He brings over a small slab of unfired clay and sets it in front of you. It's a test, clearly. He wants you to make something, anything, and make it not terrible. You pause, think, then shape a small bowl. Simple, functional. Your hands remember the way the clay moved before. You press the base, pinch the rim, rotate it slowly. And, shockingly, it looks like a bowl. A weird one, but a bowl nonetheless. Talo inspects it with the same intensity a hawk gives a field mouse. Then he shrugs and places it on a drying shelf. High praise! The Minoans, you're told, valued even the smallest vessels. Some of their most iconic artifacts are tiny. Oil lamps, perfume flasks, cups no bigger than a plum. Experts still debate whether these were practical items or votive offerings to gods and spirits. You wonder if someone, thousands of years from now, will find your sad little bowl and mistake it for religious art. You hope not, for their sake. Talo calls a break. Everyone stretches. You're sore in places you didn't know could get sore. Your lower back feels like it was personally cursed by a minor deity of posture. You sit in the shade, sipping water from a shared cup passed around by the apprentices. It tastes slightly earthy and disturbingly warm. A frog hops by your foot and disappears into a crack in the wall. No one reacts. You're starting to accept that nothing in this town makes sense by modern standards. As you rest, you glance at a mural on the far wall. Painted dolphins leap over stylized waves. Between them floats a figure, possibly a goddess, possibly someone very bad at swimming. Her eyes are closed, her arms outstretched. The colours, deep blue, rust red, pale white, are still vivid despite the centuries. This was an aesthetic civilization. Their art wasn't just decorative. It covered everything. Walls, jars, floors, even ceilings. Some scholars argue the Minoans viewed beauty as inherently sacred, that colour and pattern were a form of prayer. Others think it was simply a mark of status and wealth. Either way, you're sitting beneath what might be the world's first seaside mural. The break ends too soon. Back to the wheel. This time you try a cup. It collapses. You try again. It splits. Talo watches silently, arms crossed. The other apprentices pretend not to see you fail. Or maybe they just don't care. Eventually Talo steps in, gently moves your hands and helps guide the shape into something usable. You finish it together, and for the first time today, you feel useful. Just a little. You clean your hands in a bucket of water now tinted the colour of regret. The day's winding down and your arms are jelly. Talo slaps your back with a heavy palm. Maybe a compliment, maybe a warning. Hard to tell. He mutters something like, "See you tomorrow," and walks away, leaving you alone with your crusty fingernails and your faint, unlikely sense of achievement. Maybe pottery isn't your thing. But you didn't get fired, and that's something. By now, the sun is hanging directly overhead, turning the pale plaster walls into blinding mirrors and baking the streets until they shimmer. You wipe the sweat from your forehead with a rag that feels suspiciously like it used to be part of a curtain. Your hands are gritty, your legs are jelly, and your stomach is, again, grumbling. Not from hunger this time, but in mild protest. You need a break, and not a pottery break. A get out of this courtyard before you meld with the mud kind of break. You slip out through a side alley, hoping to find a breeze, maybe a bit of shade, or possibly a street musician with low expectations. What you get instead is a scent, an overpowering, nose-wrinkling scent that smacks you across the face like a wet tunic. You've wandered into the fish market, and you instantly regret everything. Before you can back out, a man with no eyebrows and an alarming amount of enthusiasm thrusts a basket of eels toward you. They're alive. They're squirming. One of them makes direct eye contact. You make a noise that could be mistaken for a hiccup or a small scream. The fishmonger laughs and shouts something at you, probably a joke, maybe a threat, hard to tell. Then he waves his arms and gestures for you to come see his display of, is that fermented shark? You edge away quickly and bump into a table covered in dried octopus tentacles, each one arranged like it's auditioning for a seafood-themed horror play. A fly lands on one, considers you briefly, then goes back to its snack. The market is crowded, loud, and oddly theatrical. People shout prices, toss fish through the air like it's a sport, and haggle with more drama than a modern courtroom. A woman and a man are arguing over a lobster-like creature. She slaps the creature against the table for emphasis. It squirts, he concedes. You duck behind a pillar, trying to breathe through your mouth. It doesn't help. The air is thick with brine, sweat, rotting crab shells, and some unidentifiable funk that might be sea cucumber or just an ancient curse. The Minoans were seafaring people, which means fish was life. They traded it, dried it, salted it, pickled it, possibly worshipped it. Scholars remain divided on just how central seafood was in their diets, but the evidence, bone remains, fish hooks, frescoes of leaping dolphins, points to a pretty fishy existence. You shuffle along trying to blend in, but your expression is giving you away. One older woman sees your scrunched up nose and slaps your arm with the back of her hand. Then she presses a dried sardine into your palm and nods solemnly, as if to say, "Eat this. It will make you stronger, or punish you for your weakness." You thank her awkwardly, pocket the sardine, and continue. At the centre of the market stands a curious stall, decorated not with fish, but with shells arranged into swirling patterns. A girl no older than 10 sits cross-legged beside it, humming as she strings together tiny clamshells with bits of flax. You crouch down. She smiles shyly and offers you one, a simple bracelet fragrant with salt and sun. You slip it on. It's rough but beautiful. The Minoans weren't just traders of food, they were artists with it. Their tableware was often painted, their seafood sometimes served in decorative vessels. Even the tools of fish preparation, gutting knives, drying racks, were crafted with surprising care. It's possible, experts say, that meals here were as much about aesthetics as sustenance. You're not sure you buy that, considering the bucket of fish guts you just passed. Then you find the worst offender of them all, the shellfish fermenter. It's a wide, shallow pit half dug into the ground, filled with a mixture of sun-baked mollusks, herbs, and something that might have once been seawater. A man is stirring it with a paddle the size of a shovel. The smell is so intense your soul briefly tries to leave your body. He grins at you like a proud chef. You nod, because you're too polite or too afraid to do anything else. Some scholars argue that early fish fermentation like this might be a precursor to garum, the Roman fermented fish sauce. Others think it was purely local, a salty paste used to preserve food in the heat. Either way, your nose will never forgive you. Escaping the fermenter zone, you find a shaded corner near a fountain, probably the closest thing this town has to a public bench. You sit, eyes watering, and catch your breath. A rooster walks past with the confidence of a god. It ignores you. You're grateful. Nearby, 2 boys play a game involving small bones and sticks. One of them throws a bone, the other tries to knock it mid-air with a stick. They cheer and laugh, oblivious to the chaos of the fish market behind them. You remember the sardine in your pocket. Slowly, cautiously, you take it out. The salt has crystallized on the surface. It smells survivable. You take a bite. It's chewy, inexplicably sweet at first, then aggressively fishy. Like licking a tide pool, but not bad. Kind of endearing in a masochistic way. You lean back, staring up at the sky. A gull circles lazily overhead, clearly plotting theft. You hold your sardine tighter. The fish market, for all its horrors, has a pulse, a rhythm. There's life here, frenetic, fragrant and feral, but undeniably alive. This isn't just shopping, it's ritual, culture, memory, survival. You stand, legs a bit steadier, nostrils somewhat numbed, and as you step out of the chaos, back toward the dry stone streets of your accidental life, you feel oddly proud. You didn't puke, which, in a Minoan fish market, might just make you a hero. You barely make it 3 steps away from the fish market before you're intercepted. Again. This time, it's not a potter, not a fishmonger, not even a goat. It's a boy, maybe 15. wearing a crisp tunic with gold-trimmed edges and a pendant shaped like a spiral. He's flanked by two others about the same age, both with perfect posture and expressions of bored superiority. They look you up and down like you're the world's saddest artifact. Then they laugh. You, friend, have just run headfirst into the wall of Minoan social hierarchy. Class matters here. A lot. And unfortunately for you, the clay under your fingernails, the fish scales on your tunic, and the faint stench of fermented mollusk scream peasant apprentice with no family name. You're not blending in anymore. The boys say something in Minoan. You shrug. They switch to exaggerated gestures. You slumped over like a donkey, then miming heavy lifting, then pointing at you again. You think you're being cast as ugly servant in an impromptu pantomime. The leader of the trio finishes the performance by flicking your bracelet, the shell one the girl gave you earlier, then smirks and walks off. You're not sure if that was a compliment or just cultural bullying. Social rank in Minoan Crete is still a murky topic. Scholars remain divided on how rigid the class system was, but the frescoes, artifacts, and lavish palace structures suggest a society with very clear roles. Priestess, artisan, servant, noble, farmer, and not much wiggle room in between. You, tragically, are wiggling. The good news, no one's thrown anything at you yet. The bad news, you sneeze, loudly, and that seems to break the social contract. People turn, heads swivel like owls. A merchant mutters something and pulls his daughter behind him. A woman clutches her herbs like you're possessed. A passing elder makes a quick warding gesture with his fingers. Apparently sneezing here is either unlucky, unclean, or possibly both. A priestess nearby raises an eyebrow. She walks toward you, her robes immaculate, her eyeliner sharper than most knives. She circles you once, then stops in front of you, frowns, and taps your forehead with the end of a staff. A faint breeze picks up. The air feels cleared. She nods and walks away without a word. You've just been spiritually Febrezed. Embarrassed and bewildered, you stumble toward the side of the road, where labourers are hauling massive amphorae onto wooden carts. You offer to help, because doing something seems better than standing around like a cursed outsider. One of the workers, a huge man with biceps the size of amphorae themselves, hands you a jug. It weighs more than your entire ego. You carry it about 5 steps before nearly dropping it on your foot. The big guy laughs and takes it back. Still, he gives you a pat on the shoulder. That's something. Maybe social class isn't everything. Maybe hard work earns some respect. Eventually, if it doesn't kill you first. Nearby, a group of women are weaving at a large upright loom. They work with shocking speed, fingers flying over threads dyed in ochre, indigo, and faded saffron. One of them hums a lullaby, another spits a sunflower seed into a jar without breaking rhythm. They notice you watching and wave you over. You sit near them, cautiously. They don't shoo you away. One of the younger weavers hands you a spindle and some raw wool. You try to spin it. It instantly knots itself into a fluffy, useless blob. She laughs, not unkindly, and takes it back to fix. She gives you a peach. It's warm, bruised, and perfect. Maybe you're not part of the noble class. Maybe you're not even part of the functional class. But at least someone's feeding you. You take a bite and stare at the palace complex visible in the distance. Its raised steps, its columns painted in red and black, its walls gleaming in the sun. That's where the real power lives. The kings, or maybe queens, the priests, the scribes who can read and write the elusive Linear A. The whole island revolves around that palace, like ants around honey, and you're, well, somewhere between a bug and a guest. There's a scholarly theory that the Minoan elite use ceremonial events to reinforce social hierarchy. Think parties, but ones where who you are and where you stand matters more than the food. Though the food was probably also impressive. Roast goat, honey cakes, maybe even imported wine from Egypt. A trumpet blasts in the distance. Heads turn. Someone important is approaching. You stay where you are. You've learned your place. Sure enough, a procession winds down the main road. Musicians, dancers, and what must be a minor noble on a litter, fanned lazily by attendants. He looks at you for half a second, then looks away like you're furniture. You're used to it now. You sigh and walk back toward the workshop district, wondering whether life in a Minoan seaside town is survivable not because of physical challenges, but because of social ones. You don't belong, and everyone knows it. But as you walk, a girl from the loom calls after you. She tosses you a small woven charm, 3 loops of dyed thread knotted into a spiral. You smile. Maybe belonging is a gradual thing, or maybe they just feel bad for you. Either way, you tie it around your wrist. You're following the winding edge of a sun-bleached colonnade, trying to remember how feet are supposed to work when the drums begin. Thud, 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 thud. They echo off the plaster walls, distant but growing. Not a war beat, too playful. Not a funeral march, too fast. This is something else. A nearby merchant yelps and folds up her stall in record time. A group of children squeal with excitement and vanish down a side alley. Even the cats scatter, which, frankly, seems ominous. You turn a corner and nearly collide with a man wearing what can only be described as ceremonial underpants. His skin glistens with olive oil. He grins at you with all the grace of a carnival barker and gestures excitedly. Then he takes off running, toward the main square. You follow, because curiosity is a stronger force than reason. And that's how you find yourself at the edge of a raucous open courtyard, packed shoulder to shoulder with townsfolk, all buzzing like they've come to see a rock concert. The air smells like sweat, crushed thyme, and something smoky. Someone's handing out fig cakes. You don't ask why. You take one. At the centre of the square, ringed by low stone seats and columns painted in deep crimson, stands a wooden platform. And on it, a bull, a very large bull. It snorts and stomps, ropes loosely coiled around its legs, held by men with arms like tree trunks. A priestess steps forward, her gown almost floating around her, and lifts both arms. Silence falls, except for the bull, which looks increasingly annoyed. The crowd parts slightly to let in 3 young athletes, 2 boys, 1 girl, barefoot, bronzed, and oiled. One of them is the underpants guy from earlier. You feel like you've wandered into a very specific kind of fever dream. And then it begins. One of the boys sprints forward. The bull charges. You reflexively clutch your fig cake. The boy leaps, grabs the bull by the horns, flips himself onto its back, then somersaults off its rump and lands, barely, on his feet. The crowd erupts. You've just witnessed bull leaping, the Minoan sport religious rite daredevil showcase, that still leaves scholars baffled. Experts still debate whether this was a literal activity, a symbolic ritual, or some combination of both. Some say it was athletic entertainment. Others think it was part of coming-of-age ceremonies or fertility rites. Whatever it was, it's objectively insane. Now the girl steps forward. She doesn't run. She dances. Arms outstretched, she glides toward the bull with the calm of a practiced artist. The beast charges. At the last second, she twists aside, touches its flank and lets it rush past her. Graceful. Terrifying. Absolutely not OSHA compliant. The crowd claps rhythmically. You find yourself joining in, caught in the pulse of it all, forgetting just for a second that you're an exhausted outsider with no idea how your day got here. Then it's Underpants Guy's turn again. He charges, the bull charges, but this time he slips. A collective gasp. Time slows, but just as the bull is about to slam him, he rolls, springs up and grabs the platform edge. Saved by dumb luck and calf muscles, the crowd cheers even louder. Underpants Guy bows. He's clearly done this before, possibly in dreams, possibly against doctor's advice. You glance around. People are beaming. Even the stern old potter from yesterday is clapping. The priestess watches from a shaded step, her expression unreadable. You wonder, what does this mean to them? Is it sport? Worship? A test of bravery? Scholars remain unsure whether bull leaping was an elite-only event or a festival free-for-all. The frescoes show young people of both genders smiling mid-leap as if bounding over bulls was as normal as skipping rocks. There's one theory, unconfirmed but compelling, that Minoan bull leaping may have influenced the later Greek myths of Theseus and the Minotaur. After all, Crete is the heart of that story. Labyrinths, bulls, human sacrifice. You scan the courtyard walls, half expecting to see a guy with a ball of thread. The final leper finishes his pass with a clumsy but successful dismount. The crowd begins to break up. Vendors reopen their stalls. Children reenact their favourite moves, flopping dramatically onto the dirt. The bull, remarkably unbothered, munches hay as if nothing happened. You sit on a low stone step, heart still racing, fig cake half melted in your hand. What you just saw wasn't a show. It was a window, a momentary look into a world where athleticism, danger and religion blur into one sweaty, breathtaking spectacle. A young girl plops down next to you, probably 8 or 9, with wild curls and a nose full of freckles. She grins, chews on a piece of honeycomb and offers you some. You accept. It's sticky, too sweet, but you don't mind. She mimics a bull leap, badly. You laugh. In the background, someone starts playing a reed flute. The rhythm is light, irregular, hypnotic. You close your eyes. The images linger, the dust, the hooves, the flying bodies, the crimson-painted walls. You may not survive a full leap yourself, but you've survived watching it. And in this town, that's already more than expected. You're still picking fig crumbs out of your tunic when you feel it, that unmistakable pressure in your gut. The kind that says very clearly you need a bathroom. Now you look around. There are no signs, no symbols, no helpful little stick figures, just alleys, doorways, and a whole lot of judgmental pigeons. This is not a town built for privacy. You begin wandering in earnest, half speed-walking, half praying. You pass the bull-leaping courtyard, still full of post-show energy, then duck behind a merchant stall stacked with empty amphorae. You briefly consider crawling inside one. The urge intensifies. You need answers. Finally, salvation, sort of. A boy with a broom points wordlessly down a shaded passage. You follow. At the end, a small doorway, half concealed by a reed curtain. No lock, no dignity. Just clay tiles, a faint earthy smell, and a low bench with a central hole carved into polished stone. Congratulations. You've discovered one of the earliest known indoor plumbing systems. Sort of. The Minoans were unusually advanced in their sanitation. Archaeologists have found evidence of terracotta pipe systems, drainage channels, even toilets that flushed with rainwater or poured jugs. The Palace of Knossos had actual plumbing before most of Europe figured out not to dump waste in the street, and you, poor time-tossed tourist, are about to appreciate just how ahead of their time they were. You do your business as quickly and respectfully as one can under a reed curtain while listening to someone hum nearby. The flush system isn't automatic. A jug of water sits in the corner. You pour. It gurgles down through clay channels that vanish into the wall. It feels civilized. Almost too civilized for how much else in this town seems to run on the chaos of goats and salt air. You exit just as a woman enters. She nods politely. You nod back. There's a weird moment of shared understanding. Human needs, ancient or not. Outside, the air feels fresher, maybe from relief, maybe from the gentle breeze now rolling in from the sea. You head toward the edge of town where the rooftops open into wide terraces overlooking the coast. Here, homes get bigger, walls are smoother, and gardens sprout with herbs you actually recognize. Mint, rosemary, lavender. This must be the upper district. You pass a group of servants washing linens in long clay basins fed by trickling spouts. The water flows in a steady rhythm, cool and clear. You dip your fingers in. It's icy, refreshing, and runs straight from the nearby hills via a gravity-fed aqueduct. Genius. One of the women eyes your dusty tunic and clay-stained hands, but says nothing. She's too focused on scrubbing what looks like embroidered silk. So even the nobility soil themselves sometimes, you think. There's comfort in that. A girl, perhaps 12, balances a painted jug on her head and walks it up a flight of stairs without touching it. She doesn't stumble once. You try the same balancing act with a pebble. It rolls off immediately and disappears down a gutter. Speaking of gutters, you spot a narrow trench running through the middle of the walkway, its base lined with interlocking tiles, a sanitation system. It hums softly, like a trickle of thought beneath the chaos of daily life. You follow it, watching how it branches, dips, and merges. It's hypnotic, functional, quietly brilliant. Scholars still debate whether these systems were designed solely for hygiene or had ritual significance. Some think the cleanliness of Minoan palaces reflected more than just health concerns. It might have been a form of spiritual order, a culture obsessed not just with beauty, but with balance. You pause at a small shrine tucked between two terraces. A clay figurine stands within, arms raised, eyes wide, flanked by miniature doves. Water drips nearby, slowly feeding a shallow basin carved into the stone. A woman nearby kneels to wash her hands in it, then presses her forehead to the edge of the shrine. You copy her, awkwardly. It feels strange, but comforting. There's power in ritual, even if you don't fully understand it. Nearby, two boys are playing with a kind of proto-water slide, a sloped tile ramp pouring excess water into a flower bed. One boy sends a clay beetle figurine down it. The other bets it'll make it all the way without tipping. It doesn't. They cheer anyway, you smile. Clean water, clean kids, clean jokes. Maybe the Minoans weren't so different after all. Until, that is, you step in a puddle of what you hope is water. You look down, then up. A goat on a rooftop. Laughing? Spiritually? Yes. You scrape your sandal on a stone and sigh. Even in a civilization with plumbing, goats remain the ultimate chaos. By now, the sun is sliding downward. The air has cooled just a bit. The scent of rosemary floats by on the wind. You find a stone bench beside a mosaic wall and rest. Your thoughts drift. About the pipes you just used. The shrine. The seamless way water flows beneath everything here. Quiet, essential, almost sacred. There's a word for that kind of subtle genius. Elegance. You felt it in the way this town works. Not through force, but flow. It's easy to laugh at ancient hygiene. But here, in this seaside labyrinth, you've just seen proof that people, over 3,000 years ago, figured out how to live with grace. Even in the bathroom, you're feeling a little too proud of yourself for having successfully used a 3,500-year-old toilet when the sun, without warning, takes vengeance. It's as if Helios himself, assuming he's punched in for the day, points his fiery chariot directly at you. The stone bench you're sitting on suddenly feels like a griddle, and your tunic is sticking to your back in ways you'd rather not describe. The coastal breeze that once whispered through lavender bushes has vanished. You're now in a convection oven, but hey, maybe the shrine water was blessed because you just remembered something someone mentioned this morning. The courtyard shrine. You stagger to your feet, limbs creaking like old furniture, and start walking uphill toward the inner district, following signs of smoke, prayer, and the occasional faint sound of ceremonial bells. A girl passes you holding a bundle of laurel branches, her face flushed and eyes bright. On a mission. You follow her. Because honestly, she seems like she knows what she's doing. She leads you to a small stone-walled enclosure in the middle of a narrow intersection, walled off by smooth columns painted with spirals and stylized lilies. The gate is open, and inside, a few women kneel or stand in prayer, their hands raised toward an altar shaped like twin horns. You step inside. The air is cooler here. Not because of shade, there's none, but because something about the place feels cooler. Maybe it's the clay floor underfoot, or the burnt herbs smouldering in shallow bowls, or maybe it's the altitude. Because this courtyard sits higher than most, directly beneath the noon sun, a spot of deliberate exposure. Light pours down like it's being funneled from the sky just for this sacred patch of ground. You kneel. Not out of reverence necessarily, but because your head is spinning. You're sweating buckets. Your fingers are tingling. Congratulations. You're on the verge of Minoan heatstroke. A priestess notices you. She glides across the shrine like a breeze with opinions and crouches beside you. She doesn't speak, just presses a wet cloth to your forehead. Smells like myrtle and vinegar. Your vision clears, the spinning slows. The cloth is tied around your head like a headband. You look ridiculous, but no one laughs. This is Crete, not TikTok. Another woman brings over a clay cup of something cold and slightly sweet, possibly water steeped with dates and mint. You drink it in 3 gulps, then nearly choke when you spot what appears to be a preserved lizard floating at the bottom. She takes the cup from your hand, winks, and walks away. Ancient medicine is wild. Some historians believe courtyard shrines like this were the spiritual hearts of Minoan neighbourhoods, places where locals offered small sacrifices, burned incense, or simply cooled their minds. There's evidence that each block of the town had its own small altar, likely maintained by female clergy. Whether these were priestesses in the modern sense or simply designated caretakers remains a hot topic in scholarly circles. You sit now, leaning against a wall, as the priestess burns a bundle of herbs in a shallow dish. The smoke curls upward and smells like thyme and goat fur. You close your eyes. A chant begins, soft, rhythmic, almost melodic. It's not loud. It doesn't need to be. The sound swells through your chest like a memory you never had. You don't understand the words, of course, but that's okay. Some languages aren't meant to be translated. Your head lolls to one side. Someone places a damp cloth on your neck. It's cool, calming, and gently grounding. In this small courtyard, time folds in on itself. You don't feel like a 21st century visitor anymore. You feel like a tired local, escaping the sun, wrapped in ritual and healing smells. This is what people did instead of AC and ibuprofen. Eventually, the priestess opens a pouch and begins passing around little sprigs of astringent-smelling herbs. Everyone rubs them on their wrists and under their noses. When your turn comes, you hesitate. Then you follow suit. It stings a little, but your head clears again. Possibly witchcraft. Possibly just mint. As you begin to recover, you notice something strange. A low relief carved into one of the courtyard walls. It's a snake coiled around a lily, its tongue out, eyes wide. A symbol, clearly, though for what you can't say. Healing? Death? Fertility? Snakes are tricky like that. Scholars still debate whether Minoan religious symbols were unified across the island or varied from town to town. This shrine feels personal, local. Not a palace edict, but a community's quiet pact with whatever gods listen from above. You reach for your water pouch and realise it's empty. One of the women fills it for you without being asked. She smiles. You nod in return. You're still the outsider, still the apprentice, still the sweat-drenched mess. But for the moment, you're cared for. You rise slowly, feet sticky against the clay floor. Your dizziness is gone. Mostly. You step out of the courtyard into the glare of the early afternoon, blinking against the heat. But it's not as overwhelming now. Something has shifted. The fig cake in your pouch is melting. You eat it anyway. And as you turn to head downhill, back toward the bustle of trade and labour, you glance once more at the shrine. Still fragrant, still pulsing softly with incense and prayer. You survived the sun. Barely. You owe that courtyard your life, or at least your hydration. By the time you get back down to the town square, you're more salt than person. Every pore has given up. Your limbs feel like sun-dried goat jerky. But hey, you're upright. And after your run-in with divine air conditioning at the shrine, you're weirdly optimistic. Which makes what happens next even more insulting. A group of older children, scribes in training by the look of their ink-stained fingers and slightly smug postures, are gathered around a stone table beneath an awning. They're playing a game that involves smooth pebbles and clay tablets. You pause to watch, curious. One of them notices you, nudges the others, and waves you over. You smile. Foolishly. They make space for you. A boy hands you a stylus, essentially a sharp stick, and pushes a slab of wet clay toward you with an encouraging nod. Time to write. You stare at the clay, then at the stylus, then at the jagged, mysterious marks they've made. It looks like someone tried to write while sneezing violently. You attempt to copy one. Your hand cramps instantly. This is Linear A, the famously undeciphered writing system of the Minoans. We have hundreds of examples, and we still have no idea what most of it means. Inventories, prayers, recipes, threats. Could be anything. The characters are beautiful, looping and deeply intimidating. You make a mark. It looks like a lopsided beetle. The girl across from you snorts and covers her mouth. Another child leans over, watches you try again, and whispers something that sounds suspiciously like cow droppings. He might be 10. You try to laugh it off, but it's like sitting in on a physics class in another galaxy. The characters aren't just foreign, they're smug. They dare you to interpret them, to understand a culture that left behind no Rosetta Stone, no decoder ring, just silence, carved in clay. Experts still debate whether Linear A was a full language, a ceremonial script, or a mix of pictograms and syllabic codes. What's certain is that it wasn't meant for tourists. After a few more failed attempts, your stylus breaks. You hand it back sheepishly and stand to leave. The kids don't mock you outright, but they don't stop you either. One girl does pat your arm sympathetically, which is both comforting and mildly condescending. You wander away, eyes scanning the painted walls for some symbol, some clue. There's a fresco of what might be merchants, figures exchanging goods, with markings beneath their feet. Is it dialogue, price lists, a record of trade, or an elaborate joke you'll never get? You pass a carved lintel with an inscription. The characters are precise, elegant, deeply enigmatic. You squint at them, hoping they'll blink first. They don't. You arrive at the edge of a wide courtyard shaded by an olive tree so old it might remember Atlantis. A group of adults sits around a low table playing a game with bones and stones. It looks suspiciously like a combination of checkers and astronomy. You sit a few feet away, defeated. One man leans over, nudges a clay tablet toward you. This one is different, simpler. Large symbols spaced far apart. He points to one, then to the object it represents. A jug. Ah, he's teaching you. Slowly, gently, like you're a very tired child who's hit his head. You nod, mimic the symbol. Jug. Another symbol. Sheep. Another. Grain. You repeat them, again and again, fingers tracing each curve. It's humbling, but it's something. Maybe not every Minoan knew Linear A fluently. Maybe only scribes or priests did. Some scholars believe commoners used a simplified form, or none at all. Oral tradition might have carried everything important. But here and now, you're a sponge. A sunburnt sponge absorbing fragments of a dead language you'll never fully grasp. As the afternoon rolls on, the man hands you a fresh piece of clay. He carves the symbols again. Jug, sheep, grain, fire. Then he adds one more. A spiral. You point at it. He just smiles and taps his chest. Meaning, what? Life? Self? Minoan soul emoji? The spiral, you'll learn later, is one of the most enduring Minoan motifs. Painted on walls, etched into cups, worn as jewellery. Scholars remain divided on its meaning. Some say it represents eternity. Others say rebirth, or movement, or just a nice decorative swirl. But to this man, it's personal. You trace it slowly. Then he reaches into a pouch and presses something into your hand. A tiny clay pendant shaped like the same spiral. You stare at it. It's crude, a bit cracked, but unmistakable. You nod, too moved to thank him properly. Language isn't always in words. Sometimes it's in gestures, shared breath, eye contact. Clay passed from hand to hand. You tuck the spiral pendant into your pouch. And for a moment, you stop feeling like a clueless intruder. You're still foreign, still illiterate, still mildly sticky, but you're not alone. Someone tried to teach you, and that counts. Section 11. You've barely had time to process your surprise lesson in ancient illiteracy when chaos calls again, this time from the direction of the harbour. You hear it first, shouting, thudding, the unmistakable crack of wood hitting stone. Then someone sprints past you, arms flailing, yelling something in panicked Minoan. You catch only one word, Mycenaeans. Uh-oh. You rush toward the waterfront, heart thumping, head still spinning from the spiral pendant in your pouch. As you approach the docks, the scene unfolds like a slow-motion misunderstanding at an airport check-in counter, if airport staff carried spears. Two Mycenaean traders, tall and heavily tanned, are arguing with a Minoan dock officer. One of the Mycenaeans is waving a ceramic jug and pointing at a stack of amphorae. The other is clearly losing patience and gesturing as if to say, "We had a deal." The Minoan official, dressed in a red sash and looking entirely unamused, shakes his head, folds his arms, and mutters something in a tone that screams absolutely not. You hover at the edge of the crowd that's forming, a mix of curious onlookers and people clearly here just for the drama. A woman next to you starts munching olives. Two children start mimicking the Mycenaeans, complete with exaggerated arm flapping. The Mycenaeans are from the mainland, and while they're trade partners, there's always a bit of tension. They dress louder, talk faster, and, at least today, smell like they wrestled a goat in a wine cellar. You can't understand the words, but the tone is crystal clear. These two think they've been cheated. The Minoans, on the other hand, are cool as sea cucumbers. Calm, composed, polite even in irritation. One of them even bows slightly as he tells the louder Mycenaean to please, kindly, back away from the olive shipment. A pot shatters. Nobody moves. Then the dock official lets out a long theatrical sigh, calls over a priestess. Yes, a priestess. This is serious. And points at the mess. She approaches slowly, robes whispering across the flagstones. Her presence immediately alters the energy. People stop chewing. The kids shut up. Even the seagulls pause their screaming. She looks at the broken pot, then at the traders. Then she points to the ground, draws a spiral with her finger in the dust, and speaks. You have no idea what she says, but it's clearly profound. The Mycenaeans blink. One of them looks at his feet. The other hands the priestess a small gold brooch, muttering something that might be an apology. She accepts it, then walks away. Just like that, it's over. You breathe again. Conflict resolution, Minoan style. It's not always about shouting louder. It's about presence, poise, spirals in the dirt and guilt-inducing priestesses. Scholars still debate how much political power women held in Minoan society, but scenes like this, found in frescoes, artifacts, and now your own eyeballs, suggest a lot. Women here don't just serve temples, they command attention. The crowd begins to disperse. You watch as the dock workers carefully sweep up the shards and mutter among themselves. One of them spots you, shrugs, and says something in a friendly tone. You smile back, and then one of the Mycenaeans, the quieter one, notices you. He walks over slowly, you stiffen. He points to your pouch, the one where your spiral pendant rests. You hesitate, then show it. He nods, not at the spiral, at you. Then he offers you a square of dried fig wrapped in palm leaf, a peace offering, or just a snack. Either way, you take it. He says something in slow, careful Minoan. Not perfect, but he's trying. You think it translates to, sorry, long day. You reply with what you hope means same. It might mean fish lizard, but he nods like he understands. The moment lingers. Then he claps your shoulder, smiles, and returns to his ship, where his companion is now inspecting the replacement pot, like it personally offended his ancestors. You sit on a low wall and unwrap the fig. It's sticky, sweet, and filled with little seeds that pop like sand beneath your teeth. Behind you, the harbour hums again. Merchants unload goods, bundles of herbs, baskets of figs, crates of obsidian blades wrapped in straw. Someone dumps out a sack of pumice stones. A woman counts wine jars and argues about the origin of raisins. The trade never stops. Minoan ports weren't just economic centres, they were cultural melting pots. Goods, ideas and tempers all travelled in and out of these harbours. Some say the very strength of Minoan civilization came from this web of exchange. Others argue it left them vulnerable to mainland aggression. The truth? Probably both. The sea gave them life, and visitors like the Mycenaeans brought both profit and peril. You think about the spiral in the dirt, the symbol of balance, flow. Maybe that's what this town is always trying to do. Balance, between calm and chaos, between art and argument, between you and the rest of this surreal sandal-wearing world. A gull lands beside you and stares pointedly at your fig. You break off a piece and drop it. He eats it. Truce, apparently. You lean back, arms behind your head, and let the warmth of the dock seep into your bones. The sun is still high, the town is still buzzing, and you, weirdly, feel like part of it. You're still savouring the last sticky sweet bite of that fig when the world tilts just a little bit weirder. A child, can't be more than 6, tugs your sleeve, then points down a narrow alley you hadn't noticed before. She says something urgently. You catch one word, Temenos, a sacred precinct. Then, just like that, she's gone. And because this is your life now, you stand up, dust off the fig crumbs, and walk straight into the mystery. The alley is cool, shaded, lined with cracked murals half lost to time. Vines twist along the plaster. The scent of frankincense lingers faintly, as if it passed by moments ago. You step carefully. This place doesn't feel like the rest of the town. It's quieter, older, less bustling and more expectant. You pass a carved lintel depicting 2 birds facing each other, wings raised in symmetrical arcs. Doves, maybe, or falcons, or some long-extinct creature we've misidentified entirely. The Minoans were big on animals, real or symbolic. The passage ends at a small open courtyard, overgrown with herbs and half-collapsed stone benches. In the centre stands a low temple, more of a shrine, really, with double doors painted deep red and flanked by 2 standing stones. The lintel bears another spiral, surrounded by stylized eyes. Watching, always watching. You hesitate, then push the door. Inside, cool darkness, stone floor, scent of beeswax and old resin, and peacocks, 3 of them. Actual, live, unapologetic peacocks. They eye you with regal disapproval, tails dragging like velvet gossip. One lets out a sound halfway between a cough and a trumpet. You freeze. He fluffs. Standing in the middle of the chamber as if this is all perfectly normal is a priestess. She doesn't look surprised to see you. Her gown is layered linen in gold and blue, embroidered with crescent shapes and serpentine lines. Her hair is bound in coils with beads that clack softly when she moves. In one hand she holds a shallow dish of burning herbs. In the other, a thin staff with a copper spiral at the top. You open your mouth. No words come out. She tilts her head slightly as if to say, "Yes, you, the dusty one with fish in your hair." She gestures for you to sit on a low cushion. You obey. The peacocks settle around her like living ornaments. She kneels in front of a small altar, a flat slab holding offerings, dried figs, a honeycomb, a strip of embroidered cloth, and a coiled snake carved from soapstone. Then she speaks. It's Minoan, of course. You catch none of it. But the tone is even, slow, practiced. A prayer, or a recitation. You recognize a few recurring phrases, names, invocations, warnings. She pours something onto the altar, a thin, clear liquid that smells faintly of wine and rosemary. The scent mixes with the incense, creating a haze that curls upward into the rafters. You feel dizzy again. Not from heat this time, from something else. The air in the room hums, not literally but emotionally, like it's charged, heavy with centuries. Then the priestess turns to you. She takes your hands, places a clay token in your palm. Another spiral, this one surrounded by small dots, stars, seeds. She holds your gaze for a long moment, then nods once. Whatever this ritual was, you were part of it now. Scholars still debate what the priestesses in Minoan society actually did. Some argue they were spiritual leaders. Others suggest they were administrators, healers, midwives, mystics, or all of the above. What's clear is they weren't ornamental. They led. You feel that now, sitting here under watchful peacocks in a room that feels like it hasn't changed in 3,000 years. Eventually the priestess stands. She opens a small side door and gestures for you to leave. Not rudely, just gently exiled. You step into the side courtyard, blinking against the light. It's warmer here. Hedges rustle with unseen lizards. Somewhere nearby, a water channel gurgles softly. You walk away, not looking back until you reach the corner. And there she is, standing just inside the doorway watching. She lifts her staff slightly, then vanishes into the shadows. You reach into your pouch and feel the token. Warm, smooth, etched with mystery. You have no idea what it means. But you keep it. You've been blessed, or initiated, or simply tolerated. Whatever it was, you'll never forget it. And neither, you suspect, will the peacocks. You wander out of the shrine district in a daze, your spiral token clutched in your palm like it's made of gold and answers. The streets beyond seem brighter now, louder somehow. Kids laughing, chickens squabbling, sandals slapping against sun-warmed stones. And all you want is to lie down. You find a quiet corner near a low wall and sit, back against the warm plaster, legs stretched out in front of you. The sun has dipped just far enough to offer some mercy. A cat climbs into your lap without asking, curls into a loaf, and begins vibrating. You take this as divine permission to close your eyes. You're just dozing off when the drums start. Boom, boom. Boom. Low. Rhythmic. Far too close. You crack one eye open. The cat bolts. From somewhere near the harbour, the sound grows louder, joined by claps and whistles. You sit up, groaning. A woman walking past sees your expression and mouths something that definitely translates to, "Not today, huh?" But it is today, because you've forgotten one crucial thing. There is no such thing as quiet time in a Minoan seaside town. You follow the noise, half shuffling, half dragging your body toward the waterfront again. And there, gathered in a semicircle of torches and shouting children, are the night sentinels. Well, sentinels is generous. It's more like a civic performance group / public safety team. They carry short staffs, wear crescent-shaped chest plates, and each holds a drum or a rattle or, yes, that guy has a full-on conch horn. They're preparing for the night patrol, and somehow you are being waved into formation. You try to decline. You wave your hands. You mime being tired, injured, possibly allergic to conch. A man with a deeply serious moustache hands you a tambourine. He wins, and now you're part of it. The procession begins. It's not a march, really. It's more of a roaming ritual. Equal parts performance, neighbourhood watch and noise ordinance. You walk through the winding alleys, rattling your instrument, clapping in rhythm with the others, while residents lean out of upper-story windows to join in or toss down herbs. Occasionally, someone dumps a basin of water to cool the stones in front of their house. It splashes your ankles. Feels like rebuke and blessing rolled into one. The patrol chants occasionally, short bursts of syllables you don't understand but you hum along. At one corner, a boy in a bull mask jumps out and yells. Everyone laughs. Someone hits a drum in retaliation. This is part ceremony, part security. In a world without locks or light switches, loud presence is deterrence. You're not just annoying the spirits. You're warning off thieves, predators, or whatever the Bronze Age version of a drunk raccoon might have been. Experts still debate whether Minoan night patrols were official or informal. Were they ritualistic, civic duty, or both? Evidence of their existence is largely inferred. Musical instruments found in residential areas, wall paintings of processions, and fragments of laws scratched into tablets that mention night guardians. You're too tired to theorize. You're just trying not to trip on your own feet while playing backup percussion for what feels like a seaside exorcism. Halfway through the third neighbourhood, someone hands out cups of sweet wine. It's lukewarm and strong. Your tambourine playing improves instantly. A man next to you grins and starts spinning in place. A woman joins him. Soon, it's less patrol and more portable party. Then, abrupt silence. Everyone freezes. A door creaks open nearby. From the shadows emerges an elderly woman, wrapped in layers of fabric, hair bound with silver wire. She steps into the middle of the group, raises her arms and speaks. It's slow, rhythmic. Not a chant exactly, more like a calling, the kind of speech that makes you forget it's not your language. She points toward the sky. Everyone looks. Stars. So many stars. She claps once, and everyone resumes walking, quieter now, more reverent. You're still not sure what just happened. A poem? A blessing? A reminder? You finish the route as the first true night wind curls through the town. The torches flicker. The cats return to the streets. Somewhere a reed flute begins again, soft and mournful. The patrol ends where it began, in front of the docks. The mustached man takes your tambourine, claps your shoulder, and says something that sounds suspiciously like, "You'll be sore tomorrow." You believe him. As the others disperse, you linger at the edge of the water. The waves slap gently against the dock. Somewhere far off, a ship creaks in its moorings. You stare out at the black sea, full of stars, silence, and a sense of having done something. You didn't build a wall, you didn't bake bread, but you rattled at ghosts, and that's got to count for something. You turn away, finally, and walk back toward your borrowed mat and the crumpled excuse for a pillow you call home now. Maybe tonight you'll actually sleep, assuming nothing else happens. But this is Minoan Crete. Something always happens. You wake up the next morning feeling like you've been trampled by a small ceremonial ox. Your back is a battlefield. Your feet feel like they've aged independently of the rest of you, and your fingers are still vaguely curled around a tambourine that, thankfully, is no longer there. You stretch. Something cracks, possibly your dignity. There's a new smell in the air, sharp, herbaceous, and distinctly medicinal, and it's coming from you. You sniff your tunic. Ah, yes. The night patrol's refreshment was less wine, more potion. You must have sweated it out in your sleep because now you smell like a salad on fire. A knock at the frame of your mat's shade structure announces your next adventure. A small boy holding a basket of bandages, herbs, and what appears to be a carved lizard on a stick. He beckons. You're going to the healer. You follow him through winding alleys until you reach a modest courtyard shaded by woven mats and climbing vines. Inside, a woman with thick braids and arms like tree trunks squints at you from behind a row of clay jars. She waves you over, not unkindly. You sit on a cushion that has clearly seen things. She hands you a bowl of liquid that smells like something between licorice and regret. You drink it, because refusing a Bronze Age healer feels like a bad idea. It tastes like crushed fennel, bitter roots and old beeswax. You try not to make a face. She sees the face anyway. Smirks. She points at your feet. You remove your sandals. She whistles low, then dumps your foot into a tub of cloudy water that fizzes ominously. Steam rises. Your toes tingle, then go numb. This may be healing. It also may be a curse. The Minoans, it turns out, had a robust sense of medicine. Archaeological digs have uncovered grinding stones, bronze scalpels, and a bewildering array of herbal residues. Clues suggest a mix of practical treatments, wound care, bone setting, and ritual cures involving chants, charms, and the occasional animal-based ingredient that probably wasn't FDA approved. She pokes at your leg, mutters something, and gestures for you to lie down. You obey. She rubs a salve into your shoulders that smells strongly of pine and possibly anger. It burns, then cools, then burns again. The pain travels down your spine and somehow relieves your headache. While she works, she tells a story. Not in words you understand, but in rhythm, pitch, and gesture. You catch glimpses, a snake, a mountain, a lost child, a lightning storm. It could be mythology, or gossip, or a weather report. But the tone is soothing. Then comes the toe stubbing. You hadn't noticed it until she lifts your foot and grimaces dramatically. There it is, one big toe, purple and puffed like a bad decision. You vaguely remember kicking a stone amphora during the patrol. It seemed like a good idea at the time. The healer wraps the toe with leaves soaked in something oily, then secures it with a strip of cloth made from finely shredded linen. She ties it with a flourish. You suspect she's showing off. She hands you a charm, a small bit of string with a blue bead and a dried leaf. She mimes tying it around your ankle. You do. Protection, pain relief, a placebo. The jury's out, but the leaf smells kind of nice. There's scholarly debate over how much of Minoan medicine was empirical versus symbolic. Some argue the use of charms and rituals indicates a deeply spiritual practice. Others say their anatomical knowledge, evident in surgical tools, points to real science. You've come to believe both are true, because you're lying in a vine-draped courtyard with a salve-soaked bandage on your foot and the lingering taste of anise root in your mouth, and you feel better. Not fixed, but better. The healer taps your forehead once, then points to the sky. You nod like you understand. She gestures toward the exit, smiling now. You rise, slow but steadier. As you leave, she tosses you a small bundle of dried herbs wrapped in cloth. A parting gift, or a warning. You head back toward the central square, your gait now a little uneven but blessedly pain-free. Your toe doesn't throb. Your back feels like it belongs to someone under 70. Your mouth tastes like botanical confusion. And in your pouch, one spiral pendant, one blue bead charm, one herb bundle, and the increasingly inescapable sense that you've become just functional enough to be assigned more work. You pass a group of boys leaping between two boulders. One of them slips, scrapes his knee, and immediately starts crying. You hand him the leftover string from your charm. He stops crying, stares at you like you're a wizard. You wink, because honestly, you kind of are. It's late afternoon now, and the shadows grow longer over the winding paths of town. You're walking again, carefully favouring your newly bandaged toe, which now smells faintly of cedar and possibly goat fat. The air is heavy, not hot but dense, like it's thinking about something. You hear low murmurs from a group of elders gathered under an awning, arguing gently in the way old men do, with frowns, long silences, and small but definitive eyebrow movements. You nod to them, one nods back. The others squint, then the ground moves. At first it's subtle, a ripple underfoot like someone just stomped 2 courtyards away. Then again, heavier, longer. A low groan vibrates through the clay walls. You freeze, everyone does, and then it happens, a full rolling quake. The earth bucks, clay pots fall from windows, dust pours from roof tiles, birds scream and take flight. Somewhere a dog howls like it's narrating the end of the world. You grab the nearest support post and hang on as the ground writhes beneath you. The sound is uncanny, deep, grinding, endless. The town shakes like a rattle in a giant's hand. It doesn't feel real. And then, just like that, it stops. Silence. Then yelling. You stumble into the street. People are pouring out of buildings. A woman is holding her toddler tightly. A man is shouting something toward the docks. The air is thick with dust and the sharp smell of cracked plaster. You cough. A child sneezes. A chicken sprints past you like it's fleeing Hades. Earthquakes aren't rare here. This is Crete, after all, built on fault lines, both literal and historical. Scholars agree that Minoan civilization endured multiple quakes, some of which may have helped bring it down. But to live it? That's another thing entirely. You help a merchant prop up a toppled basket of pomegranates. He nods, still wide-eyed. Another man hands you a broom and gestures to a pile of shattered amphorae. Clean-up starts immediately. No wailing, no panic. Just work. The kind of work that says, we've done this before. As you sweep, A girl rushes by with a jug of water, splashing it onto a fire that started smouldering in someone's herb stall. You help pat it out. Someone else throws a blanket over the remains. Teamwork happens fast when everything's shaking. You find yourself near a small plaza where a wall has partially collapsed. It's mostly decorative, an outer partition, but a few people are picking through the rubble, pulling out goods, sweeping away chunks of plaster. You join them, wordlessly. Dust rises with each movement and your hands are soon coated in grey. A boy climbs onto a roof to check for tile damage. Another elder sits on a step, muttering to himself, holding a figurine tightly. A goddess maybe, or a good luck charm. You wonder how many homes are held together by hope and habit. Then you hear it, faint, irregular. A rattling from above. You look up. A narrow stone archway is leaning ever so slightly, more than before. Just as you realise this, one of the smaller children runs directly underneath it. You don't think. You just move. You dart forward, grab the kid's arm and yank them back just as the arch gives way in a dusty anticlimactic crumble. The stones don't explode. They slither down in a slow cascade of groaning fatigue. Everyone gasps. The kid looks at you like you're a walking miracle. You're panting, heart racing. But the adrenaline makes your backache less. So there's that. A man claps your shoulder hard. Too hard. He says something loud and proud. Others nod, even the stern Potter from 2 days ago. You might have just been inducted into something. They give you a seat near the communal water trough and a clay cup filled with something minty and surprisingly sweet. You sip, then lean back against a wall still standing. Just barely. One of the women offers you a strip of cloth to wipe the dust from your face. You accept. A child curls up next to you, clutching a doll made of straw and string. The aftermath settles over the town like a damp wool blanket. People move slowly, speak softly, but there's no despair, just resilience, the kind you can't fake. Scholars often write about earthquakes as moments of collapse, of temples, of palaces, of systems. But sitting here, surrounded by dusty humans with strong hands and stronger nerves, you realise that earthquakes also reveal what holds firm, what bends but doesn't break, what, despite everything, endures. A bell rings somewhere up the hill. Not a warning this time, a call. It's time to count heads. Neighbours gather one by one, calling names. No one's missing, this time. You exhale deeply. For the first time since the tremor, you survived your first Minoan earthquake. Barely. And somehow, you're still on your feet. Evening begins to settle over the battered town like a soft shawl, draped gently across cracked tiles and dusty shoulders. You're walking back from the quake site, every muscle quietly complaining when you catch the scent of something roasting. You follow your nose, weaving through lantern-lit alleys, past women chatting as they mend baskets, and children comparing their best rubble stories like trading cards. A boy is proudly showing off a tile that fell off his neighbour's roof. He swears it almost hit my goat. At the edge of a wide terrace overlooking the sea, you find a modest gathering. Lanterns sway gently in the breeze, casting warm light over bowls, baskets, and clay pots. A stew simmers in a three-legged cauldron, bubbling with a smell that makes your stomach perform a slow somersault. You're handed a bowl before you even ask. It's heavy with lentils, herbs, and some sort of meat, goat probably, or maybe boar. There's no polite way to ask without offending someone or ruining the magic. You accept it with both hands and find a seat on a flat stone near a woven mat. A girl sits next to you and hands over a chunk of flatbread. You nod your thanks, then tear it in half and dip it into the stew. It's spicy, earthy, slightly tangy, possibly fermented, definitely delicious. Across from you, a man sprinkles something yellow from a tiny pouch into his bowl. You raise an eyebrow, he offers some. You try it. It's citrusy and numbing. Your tongue thanks you and curses you at the same time. A woman appears with a jug and fills your clay cup. The liquid is slightly cloudy and smells like herbs and pears. You take a cautious sip. It's fermented, sweet, with just enough sharpness to make you blink. Minoan dinner, it turns out, is no small thing. This isn't just fuel, it's a restoration, a community-wide ritual of reconnection, and maybe celebration too. After all, the town didn't crumble. Everyone's accounted for. That's a win. Scholars have long wondered what an average Minoan dinner looked like. We have remnants, charred grains, fish bones, olive pits, traces of herbs. Some frescoes show feasts, others simple bowls beside hearths. But here, In this moment, you realise that Minoan food wasn't just sustenance, it was intimacy. The man to your right introduces himself with a name that sounds like Aro. He's a fisherman, or was before the earthquake dislodged half his roof. He points out the herbs in your stew, thyme, wild onion, sea fennel, and mimes the joy of finding them after a hard rain. The girl next to you draws a bull in the dust with her finger and giggles. Then she eats half your bread. You let her. People pass around more food. Grapes, pickled cucumbers, something that might be sea snail jerky, a roasted root vegetable that tastes like garlic and tree bark. Everyone contributes. Everyone shares. It's messy. It's loud. It's perfect. One woman begins to sing, soft, melodic, in a minor key that makes you feel like you've just remembered something you never lived. A second voice joins, then a flute, then a small hand drum. The music blooms gently into the evening like steam from the stew. Someone dances, then another. A child joins, spinning in crooked little circles, arms wide like wings. The crowd claps, stomps in rhythm. You tap your foot, trying not to look too enchanted. Then you notice something odd. Near the edge of the terrace, sitting alone on a low stool, is a man with a painted mask. Spirals and waves swirling across its surface. He doesn't move, doesn't speak, just watches. You point. Aro sees you and leans close. "Dreamkeeper," he says, or something close. You wait. He continues, miming sleep, tapping his temple. You catch fragments of meaning. Watcher of dreams, bringer of quiet, guardian of the night's passage. Is he real? A priest? An actor? A ceremonial role? Scholars still debate whether these nighttime figures, often depicted in shadowy corner frescoes, were part of Minoan dream rituals or purely symbolic. Some believe dreams were treated as messages from the divine, interpreted by temple staff. Others suggest they were personal, private, or even feared. You believe the first theory now, because even in stillness the masked figure radiates purpose. The stew is gone. The breadcrumbs are history. Your cup is mysteriously full again. You lean back, letting the warmth of the fire and the rhythm of the music ease your aches. Someone's laughing in the distance. Someone's crying softly beside a friend. A cat saunters through the gathering like it owns everything, and it probably does. You watch the sky turn deeper blue. Stars wink into view, one by one. The dreamkeeper still hasn't moved. You take another sip, then stretch out on your side, cheek against your arm, the clay bowl balanced beside you, and for the first time since waking up in this town, your body truly relaxes. You're not clean, you're not fluent, you're not even sure what you ate, but you're fed, you're safe, you're not alone, and tomorrow will be someone else's turn to scrub the amphorae. Tonight, you just breathe. The stars are fully out now, sprinkled across the sky like spilled barley grain, bright, unblinking, impossibly close. You're lying on your side, still half draped in stew warmth, when someone nudges your foot. You blink awake, groggy, but not unhappy. It's Aro again, the fisherman. He gestures toward a group gathering at the far end of the terrace. Lanterns are being lit. A jug of wine is being passed around. You follow, because at this point, when a Minoan waves you over, you go. The group sits in a loose circle, backs against stones, heads tilted toward the firelight. Someone strums a lyre, badly but earnestly. Another person begins to speak. You catch only fragments, but the rhythm tells you it's a story. Everyone leans in, even the cat. It's a tale about a sailor, or maybe a god, or maybe a sailor who became a god by accident. Something about a dolphin, a storm, and a golden egg that was also a person. You're not following all of it, but the laughter, gasps, and soft sighs that ripple through the group keep you hooked. Then it's another person's turn, and another. A woman tells a riddle involving a tree, a goat, and a jealous neighbour. The punchline makes everyone burst into delighted howls. You just laugh along and hope it wasn't rude. A child stands to recite a poem. It's shaky, clearly memorised, full of pauses and wrong syllables, but the group claps loudly anyway. The child beams. You do too. Welcome to the Twilight Games. This apparently is what Minoans do when the day's dust settles and the work is done. They talk, they tell riddles, they tease each other, gently, sometimes sharply. They lean into the firelight and spill fragments of myth, gossip, dreams, and possibly total nonsense. And it's wonderful. You're invited to speak. You panic slightly. Then you pantomime your earlier battle with the goat near the pottery yard. You mime the slip, the bray, the stare down. People giggle. One person mimics the goat. Another adds a dramatic slow-motion sound. You've just contributed your first local legend, the goat duel of Dust Alley. A man leans in and hands you a smooth black stone. It's cool in your hand. Polished. He says a word you don't know, then points to the fire and then to his heart. A token? A symbol? A game piece? You pass it to the next speaker when they start a story. It's about a boy who fell in love with his own shadow and had to chase it into the mountains. Weirdly beautiful. The stone moves again. So do the jokes. Light, barbed, affectionate. Someone says something about Arrow's sandals being older than the palace. Arrow grins and fires back a zinger about someone's cooking. The whole group erupts. You've learned by now that humour here isn't just for entertainment. It's a kind of currency. And tonight it's flowing. There's one riddle that keeps making the rounds, told in various forms. I am taken from the mountain but live in the sea. I have no eyes, but I watch your sleep. What am I? You guess fish. They laugh kindly. The answer turns out to be salt. Simple, profound, oddly poetic, just like everything else in this place. The lyre player tries again. He's slightly better this time. You hum along, even though the tune is more of a wobble. A woman taps a soft beat on a gourd. A man claps once every 3 beats. Intentionally or not, nobody can tell. Someone spills wine. Someone else slaps a mosquito. Everyone is perfectly at peace. Then a hush spreads, unspoken. A new voice begins, low, old, slightly cracked. It belongs to the elder woman who tends the herb stall. She tells a long story. The cadence alone is spellbinding. Her voice dips and rises, phrases looping like tide and wind. You don't understand a word of it. And yet, you understand everything. It's about time, about love, about something lost and something never found. Or maybe it's just about bread. It doesn't matter. It's her story, and it belongs here. A baby cries somewhere far off. A flute begins to play from another rooftop. The fire crackles. A breeze stirs the smoke. You glance up at the stars again. The same stars these people looked at 3,500 years ago. The same stories. The same rhythms. Some scholars believe that Minoans valued oral tradition as much as, if not more than, their written texts. Lineae may have captured data, but meaning, emotion, belief, memory, lived in voices, in nights like this. You feel it now, deep in your chest. The story ends. The circle applauds softly. The stone is passed to you again. This time, you keep it for a moment. You close your hand around it. And for once, you don't feel like a visitor. You feel present, like someone who belongs in the story. Just as the fire begins to settle into red glowing embers, and you're stretching out on your side to maybe drift into the kind of sleep reserved for the emotionally fulfilled and moderately drunk, a drumbeat cracks the calm in two. Boom! 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 You flinch. The cat bolts. Several people groan audibly. Aro mutters what is probably the Minoan equivalent of, "You've got to be kidding me." The patrol drums are back, but it's not the same as before. These are slower, deeper. Not the cheerful clatter of the night watch. This is ceremonial, maybe spiritual, or maybe just really, really loud. Before you can even process it, a young man with soot-smeared cheeks and a hawk feather tucked behind his ear grabs your wrist. He shoves a torch into your hand and says something urgent. Others around you are standing, collecting instruments, masks, cloaks. You've been drafted again. And this time, it's not a neighbourhood parade. It's a phantom-chasing procession. Congratulations. You shuffle forward into the flickering light, torch held awkwardly. Around you, others chant softly, faces hidden behind painted masks. Some spiraled, some horned, some just odd. The air is thick with the scent of burning herbs and sea salt. Someone nearby shakes a pouch of bones that click ominously. A woman begins howling. It's part of the ritual. You hope. As the group marches through the alleyways, a chant starts, low, rhythmic, more breath than words. You try to join in. You're not sure what you're saying. It might be an insult to someone's grandmother. The others nod anyway. Every so often, the procession stops. Someone circles a doorway with smoke. Another leaves a fishbone or olive branch on a step. Then the group moves on. You whisper to Aero, who's once again walking beside you. He tries to explain with gestures. This part of town. Cursed. That house. Someone saw a shadow. This door. Definitely haunted. Ah, so this is ghost control. Some scholars believe Minoans had specific nighttime rites for cleansing spaces of bad spirits or ill omens, especially after events like earthquakes. There are accounts of ash being spread, symbolic items buried at thresholds, and entire buildings being abandoned for reasons no one recorded. You now understand why. The group turns sharply down a narrow lane. Your torch flickers wildly as wind rushes past. A woman hisses at the darkened doorway ahead. A man waves a spiral symbol. Another smears something onto the lintel, probably goat blood, possibly fermented fish paste. Then comes the drum again. Boom, 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 louder this time, as if the street itself is beating in time. Suddenly the boy with the feather shrieks and throws a basket at a shadow. People cheer. A mask tumbles to the ground and rolls to your feet. You pick it up. It's painted with crooked eyes and a grin too wide for the face. You turn it over in your hand. The mask isn't for scaring ghosts. It's for reminding you that you are scarier. The group moves again. Louder now. Laughing, chanting, pounding the ground. It's not fear. It's theatre. Performance meets purification. A way of saying, we're still here to the things that linger where light doesn't reach. Someone starts dancing, clattering a bone rattle above their head. You join in. You don't know the steps, doesn't matter. You spin, stomp, laugh. Dust rises. The spirits, if they're watching, probably think you've lost it. Maybe you have, but in the most glorious way. Eventually the procession loops back to the harbour, circling a small shrine with 2 fish carved in opposite directions. Everyone gathers, raises their hands, and releases a long, unified sigh. The torches are extinguished one by one, yours last. You hold it up, watch the flame flicker, then let the smoke drift into the night. Silence. You're covered in ash and sweat and possibly haunted joy. Your head hums, your knees wobble, but your heart feels full. This is not how people back home end their evenings. Back there, it's streaming and serial and staring into blue light. Here, it's ritual and noise and shared madness. And somehow, that feels more human. As the crowd disperses, Aro slaps your back and gives you a bone rattle as a souvenir. You twirl it. It sounds like maracas on their final breath. You walk home, if you can call your straw mat and woven blanket, home, past the echo of chants and the flicker of lanterns being snuffed out. Above the moon hangs full and round, casting soft silver across broken rooftops and sleeping cats. You lie down. Your bones ache. Your ears ring. You've danced with ghosts, and you're still standing. It's the middle of the night when it happens. You are, at last, deep in sleep. Not the restless kind you've been getting used to, but actual, blissful, drooling sleep. The kind of sleep where your body forgets it's tired because it just ceases to be anything at all. And then, flute. A high, breathy note snakes into your dreams and yanks you out of them like a startled goat. Your eyes snap open. It's pitch dark. Flute again, this time longer, louder, then joined by another and another. Somewhere bells begin to jingle, then soft drum taps, then voices, gentle but insistent. You sit up, eyes gummy, brain refusing to load. A child runs past your makeshift sleeping area, giggling. Another follows, holding something that glows faintly. Glow bugs, maybe. No, a ceramic lamp painted with stars. You blink in confusion. Then Aro appears. His hair is flattened on one side like a crushed olive. He yawns, scratches his head, and says something that sounds like, "You didn't think we were done, did you?" You throw your arms into the air in mock despair. He grins. Apparently this is normal. It's the final waking. In Minoan tradition, especially after certain festivals or earthquakes, there's a night-wake ritual. A brief middle-of-the-night celebration or blessing to guard against ill dreams and call back wandering spirits of the living. Some think it's connected to lunar phases, others believe it was just tradition. The jury's still very much out. But what's clear is this. No one sleeps through it. You shuffle along with Aro through torchlit paths as a crowd gathers again near the courtyard shrine. Children carry clay lamps. Women hum softly. A man balances a jar on his head for reasons unclear and probably unnecessary. A priestess stands ready, different from the one you met before. She's younger, with a hawk tattoo on her shoulder and eyes that don't blink nearly enough. She raises a flute, plays a low, slow note. Everyone else responds, not with words, but with breath. A collective exhale into the night air. You join, awkwardly. Then a prayer begins. This one, slow and repetitive. Not in linear A, or if it is, it's a simplified chant version. You recognize the pattern. Sleep without fear, sleep without shadow, sleep with silence. The crowd repeats it, again and again. It becomes a lullaby, not just for people, but for the town itself. Even the goats are quiet. Then comes the dream sharing. People step forward, one by one, and whisper their dreams to the priestess. She nods. Sometimes she smiles. Sometimes she looks concerned. She gives each person a token, small, carved stones or bundles of herbs or knotted strings. When your turn comes, you hesitate. You didn't dream. You were unconscious. So you say nothing. You just shrug. She studies you, then places a single olive leaf in your hand. No words, just a look. You get the feeling that's more than enough. Afterward, you sit with the others in the square. Someone hands out little cakes made of crushed dates and honey. You chew slowly. The air is warm, damp with dew. The stars above are beginning to fade as the eastern sky lightens with the faintest brush of pre-dawn. The bells ring one last time. Soft, final, and just like that, it's over. People wander back to their homes, to mats and courtyards and rooftops. Some curl up where they are. Others sit and watch the light change, refusing to miss the sunrise. You walk back, half awake, half whatever comes after a wake. Your feet carry you on instinct. You pass the bull mural again, its painted eyes now less myth and more memory. You nod at it. It does not nod back. You pass a pile of broken pottery from the quake, swept neatly into a corner. Someone's painted a flower on one of the shards. You pass a young man sleeping beside a goat, both snoring. When you reach your mat, the light is just beginning to spill over the horizon. You lie down once more. You close your eyes, and this time, you dream. You awaken for what feels like the 10th time in a single day, except it's not really morning yet. The sun hasn't fully breached the horizon, but the sky is humming with that quiet silver glow that tells you dawn is waiting just off stage, tapping its foot. You lie still, half covered by your linen wrap, your toes sticking out, the scent of smoke and thyme still faint on your skin. Somewhere nearby, a rooster is clearing its throat. Another one answers with more confidence. You've made it. Somehow, against all odds, you've survived a full day in a Minoan seaside town. And your reward? This quiet moment. The town isn't awake yet. Not fully. You can hear a few sandals scuffing the stone. Maybe someone starting a fire. A baby fussing softly from behind a reed curtain. But mostly, stillness. You sit up slowly. Your back groans. Your toe reminds you that yes, it's still injured. Your hands are cracked, your shoulders slightly sunburned, and your tunic has achieved a level of grime usually reserved for archaeological layers. You feel amazing. You stretch. The kind of stretch that lifts your ribs and squeezes the last remnants of sleep from your lungs. A breeze brushes across your face, lifting a lock of hair and carrying the scent of sea and wood smoke. It's a new day, but you know better than to trust it. Because this town, this strange, ancient, beautiful mess, never stops. Sure enough, as you stand and shake the dust from your mat, someone calls your name. Well, not your name, your Minoan nickname, which probably translates to the clumsy outsider or that one with the sandals. It's the potter's apprentice waving at you. You wave back but hold up a finger. Not yet, not now. You need just one more moment. You walk to the edge of the town where the stone walkway meets the rise above the harbour. Below, the ships bob gently, their sails furled, the mast creaking like old bones in the breeze. The water glows with that pre-sun pink, the kind that seems more dream than colour. And in the silence, everything hits you at once. The smell of barley and fish, the clang of amphorae, the scrape of sandals, the feeling of sun on wet clay, the priestess's eyes, the spiral token in your pouch, the salt-stung laughter of children. The bulls snort before the leap, the earthquakes growl, the masked watcher of dreams, all of it. You didn't just visit this town, you lived it. You didn't speak the language, you didn't understand the customs, but you felt every part of it in your bones, in your breath, in your blistered feet. This place is still here. Maybe in ruins now, sure. Maybe silent. Maybe buried beneath olive groves and hotel foundations. But here, in this night that just ended, in this dream, you were part of it. And that means it's never fully gone. So you turn around, walk back toward the town that never sleeps quite all the way, and smile at the apprentice now throwing his hands up at you in mock outrage. You're late. But not really. Because here in this place, time doesn't move the way it should. It folds, it pulses, it loops back on itself like a spiral drawn in the dust. And in the heart of that spiral, you are still walking, still tasting, still laughing, still here. So now, as you settle deeper beneath your blanket, eyes growing heavy, let your breath slow with the rhythm of the tide. Imagine the sea whispering just beyond the edge of your dreams, the gentle creak of a boat rope in the harbour, the soft hum of someone stirring barley in a clay pot far away, long ago. Everything is quiet now. Everything has calmed. The village is asleep again. The fires are low. The masks have been stored. The dreamkeeper watches from a rooftop, but he no longer needs to guard. The night is safe. The shadows are still. The ghosts are full from the songs and the dancing, and they too are resting. And you've walked the ancient paths. You've tasted the herbs. You've sweated in the clay pits and danced through the ghost streets. You've done enough. You've seen enough. You're tired. And you're home. Feel your limbs grow soft. Let the weight of the day sink through your mattress like stones through seawater. There is nothing left to do now. No more drums. No more chants. Just the long, slow breath of sleep rising and falling like the sea. Let the spiral carry you inward. No need to remember the words. No need to explain the rituals. They're not meant for explanation. They're meant for dreaming. And so, with the stars fading above the Minoan rooftops, and the sea still glowing faintly in the distance, close your eyes. You're safe. You're warm. And you're exactly where you need to be. End of script. Sweet dreams.